Hey Adam, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Okay, ready?
Ready.
All right, let's go. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to our Fireside chat with Adam Cheyer. This chat is a global entrepreneurship week event sponsored by Samelogic, and we do hope that our discussion today may be beneficial to you on your journey as a product manager, software engineer, a founder, or overall a better person. So today, our conversation is with Adam Cheyer. Adam is an inventor, entrepreneur, engineering executive, and a pioneer in AI and computer human interfaces. Adam has been a co-founder or founding member of 4 successful startups, including Siri, which we all know, sold to Apple, where he led server-side engineering and AI for the Siri assistant, Change.org, the world's largest petition platform, Viv Labs, sold to Samsung. Whereas VP of R&D, Adam led product engineering and developer relationships, developer relations for Samsung's voice assistant, and Sentient, massively distributed machine learning sold to Cognizant. Previously, Adam was the VP of engineering at Verticalnet, enterprise software, and Dejima, mobile software. Adam also spent more than a decade at SRI International, where his most recent role was as Chief Architect of CALO, the U.S. government's largest funded AI project. In addition to his technology work, Adam is really, really cool, award-winning magician. He has performed in stadiums for thousands, on TV for millions, including on the well-known Penn and Teller Fool show, entertained heads of state, presidents, and fooled some of the top pros in the business. Adam has authored more than 60 publications and 38 patents, and served on numerous advisory boards and committees. Adam, welcome. It's such a pleasure to speak with you this evening.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you, Dwayne.
No problem. Adam, you're an inspiration to many, including myself. Tell me about your childhood. How did you start on this journey of becoming an engineer and a founder?
Sure. From childhood days, I guess the attribute of my childhood that's most relevant is that I was bored a lot.
Wow.
So my mom was great, and she gave me 1 hour of TV time or screen time a week. And it was just enough time to watch commercials and say, "Oh, Mom, could you buy me this toy?" And she'd say, "No, but here's a stack of cardboard and some tape and staples. You can build it yourself." And so when you grow up and you aren't consumed every minute with social media or television or video games or whatever, you have a lot of time on your hands, you're bored. And so what does that lead? It leads you to build your creative muscle, to kind of dream of things, to tell yourself stories, to build things out of cardboard or paper when I was a kid. And I see that path definitely leading onwards to what I do today. I try to, when parents say, "What should I tell my kids to become entrepreneurs?" I say there are 2 types of behaviors. There's consumptive and productive. Like, you consume and you produce. So don't just watch a TV show, make a TV show, like make a video. Don't just play a game, write a game, build a game, make up a game. Don't just, read something, write something. And so this notion of creating, I think, is a muscle that doesn't get as used as often as it could in this day and age.
Very, very interesting. So apart from playing with cardboard, what things did you like doing as a kid, and how did those things help to turn you into the person that you are today?
Well, I grew up in a pretty rural town, so there was woods in the backyard, and I'd go running through. So I spent a lot of time outdoors and running. But I think, again, the most relevant you made reference to my magic passion. When I was young, I would dream about these places like Magic Castle in California, and read about these characters and personalities who were magicians, and they seemed otherworldly and colorful and interesting. So I loved magic, and that directly leads to my career as an entrepreneur in many ways. I often say a magician and an entrepreneur are exactly the same. And they're like, what? What do you mean? And I said, well, an entrepreneur and a magician, they both have to imagine an impossible future, something that doesn't exist. If you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to build something that already exists. You have to imagine an impossible and desirable future. If you think about Siri 20 years ago, the idea that you could carry around in your pocket a supercomputer that you could talk to, and it would talk back to you and perform actions and tasks and retrieve information from anywhere in the world, that would have been a magic trick, right? So you have to imagine an impossible future. And then once you know the effect, the dream, a magician and an entrepreneur work backwards, and they figure out the math and the science to make that come true. And so, my early days in magic, I think, carry very, very well to today as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you need to be able to pitch your idea, and it should be magical and exciting. But there needs to be the math and science to make it real. And both magicians and entrepreneurs do that.
Really, really cool. So quick question. It may be a bit too much to ask, but how can we see a magic trick before Q&A?
I think I might be able to do something. I'm on the road today, but why don't we, right towards the end of the talk, why don't I try to show you?
Oh, wow. That'd be cool. All right, so let me ask. In your paper co-authored by Didier Gazzoni and Charles Barr, you stated that as computer systems continue to grow in power and access more networked content and services, we believe there will be an increasing need to provide more user-centric systems that act as intelligent assistants, able to interact naturally with human users and with the information environment. This paper was published in 2007, which in that time, the world was very, very different then. What data were you looking at to substantiate this hypothesis?
So it's an interesting question. So Didier Gazzoni was a PhD student in Switzerland, École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne. I was his advisor, and he did actually a number of user studies as part of his thesis. But I've long believed that an assistant, if done right, could be a way of interacting with content and services distributed around the world. Very much like we do the web or mobile. I thought if done right, the assistant could be as powerful or more powerful and as generically important as the web or mobile, literally a paradigm for how people would interact. So I believed it then, and we wrote it. In terms of data, one of the things that we did was Didier built a system. It was called Active Ontologies. That's probably what this paper is about. And in this system, we didn't just build it. We put it in front of users, and we said, today, this was 2007. You guys use Google. You guys, on a phone, Google Mobile. You use Ask Jeeves. You use Yahoo Search and Yahoo Local. Well, here is a set of tasks that you should try to achieve using the best commercial system available, right? And we literally measured how long did it take and how many tasks could they do within half an hour for about 22 different users. And then we said, now here's our little research prototype, our beginning prototype. Try to solve the same tasks or similar tasks using this. And we measured how many clicks did it take, how many round trips did it take, how much time did each task take, and how many tasks could they achieve in those 30 minutes. And when we saw that we really had value, that using this assistant-based approach, they could actually achieve far more problems, solve more problems in the same amount of time, then we knew we had something. And that actually became the software system and the user studies that we went to VCs with to show them, this is something that we should raise money about.
So I'm guessing this was the start of Siri, right?
It depends what you call Siri. So Siri is, so yes, it was start of Siri, the company. Siri was a little startup that we incorporated based on active ontologies. Digi's active ontologies was the core technology. My first version of Siri was actually in 1993, the year before I saw a web browser.
Wow.
So I said, someday we're going to have content and services around the world that we want to access. We need a way to discover those services and a way to interact with them. The idea of using hyperlinks and bookmarks and web pages never occurred to me. I thought everyone would have an assistant. You could say, I want to know this, or I want to do that. And the assistant's job would be to break your request into subtasks, route it to the right machines around the world, aggregate the results, present them to the user, learn from the interactions, and help the user get their job done. So for me, before I ever saw the web, I imagined, I'll call it Siri, as the internet, literally as the internet, with people publishing content and services. And the interaction paradigm is you would ask and you would have both graphical results, it could speak to you. I had a little wireless tablet where you could do handwriting recognition as well as speech recognition and delegate requests to this growing set of websites or web services. We called them agents back then. So, if you think of Viv was my next company after Siri, the letters Viv in Roman numerals for me stands for V4. V as in version 4, IV. So version 4, Viv was version 4. We had version 3 was the Apple Siri. Version 2 was the active ontologies, Didier Guzzoni. And my original version in 1993 was, for me, V1, or the first assistant ecosystem that I tried to build.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. So building a product like Siri and the many things you've built before Siri, and then exiting Siri to Apple is no easy task. Steve Jobs himself famously called the company and asked, based on the fantastic things he heard about the product, and asked for a demo. How did that change the moral of the team, and how did it change how the team?
So we had launched a free app in the App Store. We were one of 2 million apps at that time. And we did get that call from Steve. So literally the phone rang. We were using our iPhones. And it said Apple, Cupertino. And I don't know if you remember, but in those days, you would have to swipe to answer the phone.
Yep.
And sometimes it didn't pick up. So we're like, swipe, come on, answer. Finally, it answers. And we hear, hey, Steve, what you doing? Want to come over to my house tomorrow? And we're like, Steve Jobs? And the first question we asked was, how'd you get this number? Because one of the, we can go into what Siri means. There are many stories about the name of Siri, but one of them is Siri means secret in Swahili. That's not the official meaning. But we started out as stealthcompany.com. That was our website with a dash. We were very stay low, move fast was our slogan. And we had all these secret things. So there was no sign on our door, no phone number on our website. And we're like, Steve Jobs is calling us. How does he know our number? It just felt so eerie. We went over to Jobs. Yeah. So we the 3 founders went over to his house the next day. We spent 3 hours with him. We talked about technology. We got into our first, not argument, but debate. So this tells me, people say, what was Steve Jobs like? And I say, here's the number one thing for me. He was desperate to win. Right? You think he's a billionaire. He's changed, so many fields, from computing to mobile to movies to music. You think he could just chill a little. There was nothing chill about Steve Jobs. And so we were like, he asked me, he goes, Adam, should Apple buy this company? I'm not going to reveal the company name. And I said, no, I don't think so. He's like, what? Why? And we started arguing about it, like fervently. And after about 15 minutes, he goes, you know what? Maybe. I'm going to think about it. So the thing about Steve is that he desperately wanted to be right, to get it right. But he didn't feel like he had to necessarily be the smartest person in the room. He was always questioning himself. And if someone had a different opinion that they could defend with facts and judgment, he was always open to changing his mind because he wanted to be right. He wanted to win, like with fire, a passion. Now, if you couldn't defend your position, he'd like knock you out of the way and say, don't waste my time. I've got worlds to change. But that was what it was like that first day. And so he made it clear that he wanted to buy the company. We said, thank you. We're not interested. Flattered. Goodbye. And we left.
Wow.
But he came back about a month and a half later with Scott Forstall. They managed to convince us that we could change the world more with them than without. So we decided to join. You asked about the morale for the team. So all of this was going on in secret. We didn't want to, we had plans, right? Wow. We had just raised a B round. We had just launched. We had a distribution deal signed to launch nationwide on above the fold. So as soon as you turned on a phone, we were going to be on Android. We're going to be on BlackBerry, iPhone, like tens of millions of dollars of TV commercials with a different provider. And so we had plans. We didn't want to disrupt any of that with this little secret discussion with Apple. But when we decided to sell to Apple instead, we had asked Steve, would you come kind of meet the team and announce that we're joining Apple with us?
Wow.
I never thought he did it. But once it closed, Steve Jobs left an Apple's earning call halfway through, got into a car, drove to our office. It was a huge secret because the way SEC rules work, there's this time period that if it comes out between, it could have killed the whole deal. So we smuggled him up our elevator, and the team was gathered in a conference room. And we just said, roadmap meeting, join us in the conference room at 2:00. And by the way, leave your phones. No one's allowed to bring a phone to the meeting, which was kind of odd, but no pictures were allowed. And we walked into the room with Steve Jobs. Everyone's jaw hit the ground.
Oh my God.
We thought we would get 5 minutes with him. He stayed for a full hour answering every question. One guy who'd been working on the BlackBerry version of Siri, which was awesome. It would have been the best app on BlackBerry ever in the existence, goes, excuse me, what happens to the BlackBerry version? And Steve Jobs started whistling taps. It was so funny.
Wow.
But but I think everyone was pretty excited about it. And in the way down in the elevator, we said, Steve, this must be the fun part for you when you acquire a company, you get to go meet them and have that experience. This was so impactful. And he goes, yeah, I've never done that before. And so we felt so special. That time that we had as the way launching in, it was an incredible thing.
Really cool. So on October 4th, 2011, it was a very, very important day for you, a very special day. What happened that day?
Yeah. So we joined Apple at the end of April 2010. So we had a little less than 18 months to define. It was an incredible effort by a small team. We were 22 people at Siri, which is a small team to pull that off. So in those 18 months, we built 15 new domains. So maps and, there were a whole bunch, and weather, all the apps that were on the iPhone, finance, etc., messaging. So we built Siri for 15 new domains. We ported it to 4 different languages, which we had never done. We were set to scale for maybe 1 million users before Apple, and we needed to scale that to hundreds of millions of users. In fact, our little Siri team led the first international data centers Apple ever built. We designed it from hardware all the way up the stack. Hundreds of millions of dollars of hardware being deployed. We ran iTunes in like a corner of our Siri deployment. It's very, from a small team. We managed to move a lot of functionality down to the client and embed into the iOS itself. So it was a huge amount of work, but October 4th, 2011 was the day that Siri was revealed to the world. It was crazy. Scott Forstall was doing a demo up on stage. And many people don't know October 5th, the very next day, was the day that Steve Jobs died.
Yeah.
And he had been, so an admin of his, an exec admin, wrote to me about 2 years ago, said, I've been meaning to tell you this. I didn't know how to contact you. Steve Jobs was clinging to life to see the launch of Siri. And I just found out, someone wrote me yesterday and said they came across a podcast or a blog interview with Scott Forstall. And he said right at the end days, he would go visit and sit with Steve. And Steve couldn't lift himself up. He couldn't type, but he could use Siri to dictate messages and do a lot of things. But he was clinging to life to see the launch of Siri. And one more story about this day, October 4th. And this is a lesson that your entrepreneurs or your product people can do. I often say, when you're working on an ambitious project, something that seems crazy, visualize what success looks like. Picture it in your mind as concretely as you can. And with the Siri story, when we were just a handful of men and women, like 3-4 people, I remember walking into an Apple store and seeing on the wall of the store, there was a bunch of icons on the wall featured. It was Google, there was Pandora, there was Skype, all of these like big companies. And I kind of summoned up all my ambition and my courage. And I said, someday Siri will be right there on the wall of an Apple store next to a Google, a Skype, a Pandora, and then a Facebook. This seemed absurd to me. We were like a couple of people. The idea that Google and Siri would be side by side on a wall of Apple was like, couldn't believe it. And so October 4th, when things launch, I had to go to the Apple store. And as I walked up to the Apple store, on the front door, next to the front door of the Apple store, they had set up a plasma display running Siri on a loop with a sign that said introducing Siri above it. And this juxtaposition of me wanting to be one icon out of 100 on a wall and being the front door, it's like my mind blew. I got chills. And that has happened to me time and time again with different companies, different ideas, where I picture something and not only does it come true, life or destiny will go back and say, remember that picture snapshot in your mind? I upped it, didn't it? And it's the best thing about the entrepreneurial journey is to really enjoy and appreciate those moments that you're like, I just can't believe it. And if you visualize the before and after, side by side, what would success look like and what is it? Wow, it's fantastic.
Oh, wow. That's so inspirational. So cool. So what kind of experiments did you perform to ensure that you and your team were building the right thing?
For that one, with Siri, I had already been working. By the time Siri launched in 2011, I had been working for 18 years from my my 1993 first version. So I had lots and lots of data, but none of it was confirmed. No one knew the world needed an assistant until we gave it to him. But I had a pretty concrete plan. The way I think I'll answer this question is I'll talk about change.org. So change.org is the brainchild of Ben Rattray, who's CEO and founder. he came to Silicon Valley. We were introduced, and I loved what he wanted to do. It fit a lot of my views. And so we said, we're going to build a social network for social activism. So this was 2006. Social networking was just taking off, right? MySpace had just become the highest trafficked website in the United States. And Facebook was growing fast and becoming popular. So we're like, we're going to build social network for social activism. So we had all sorts of ideas, especially Ben. He is prolific on features. And so I built the first MVP, and I brought a bunch of friends in who started to help. It was all kind of volunteer basis. But we, didn't know what the end site, what was going to be the needed thing. But what we did well with change.org is we instrumented everything. We had great analytics about what every user clicked on, what they did, how much time they spent looking at things. And we optimized, we tried a million different versions of the site. I mean, incredible rapid iteration of features. We had a politics component that could do click to call and call your local congressperson. We had a giving platform, so you could give gifts to people, give 1 square meter of rainforest saved, or an animal saved from a pound, or 1 carbon neutral emission. You could gift people. When the economy crashed, we had the largest job board for social causes. So go back to work and go back for something that actually appeals. So we tried a million things, but petitions seemed to perform a little bit better, right? So we moved it a little bit more to the middle, made it a little bit bigger. And if you look at our metrics, I'm going to round up to the nearest million. Year 1, we were 1 million users. Year 2, 1 million users. Year 3, now I'm rounding up to the nearest million. Year 3, 1 million users. Year 4, 1 million users. We're iterating and trying everything. Year 5, 10 million. Year 6, 25 million. We went 10, 25, 50, 100, 150, 250. We're now 350. We're now over 400 million members. And so a lot of it was trying experiments, trying different things, instrumenting everything. And yes, you have a vision, you have a plan, but you also have to let data kind of lead you, and you have to listen to the data. And if something's working well and it's aligned with where you want to go, you have to follow it, and good things can happen.
Got it. Really, really interesting. We're almost out of time here for this segment. So my last question to you will be this: timing is so essential to success. It's possible to be too early or too late. What tools do you use to know when it's too early or too late to start, or when to bring an idea to market?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I had been working on Siri for years and years and years. If I had started the company anytime sooner, probably would have failed. If I had started it much later, it would have failed. So the best tools I have to offer is I use the notion of trends and triggers. And I'll give you exactly how I did this. So in 2004, for me, it was the 10th anniversary of the web as I was counting. So I go, that's interesting. 10 years we've had a web. Let me make 10 predictions for the next 10 years. And I kind of looked at things and I made opinions. Where's the world going? And anyone here could do that today. Pick a topic that's not yet decided, like Bitcoin. Is it real or is it a fad? Meaning, is it going to go mainstream or not? Augmented reality, is it going to take off or is it going to always stay niche? Just pick a topic, do research, have an opinion. And those predictions, those opinions are the trends. I think the world is going this way. I think so. My 3 best predictions out of the 10, and you can actually go and see when there's a web video where I scored my original 2004 predictions. Some were good, some not so good. My best 3 led directly into companies. So I said, in 2004, I said, social networking will take off. I said, data is going to move to a cloud and machine learning will then be important because it's all about data. And I said, a new interface is going to emerge and it will be around the idea of a Siri-like assistant in mobile context. And so those were 3 predictions that did well. I started companies. So that's the trend idea. Triggers is when the iPhone came out, many people said this is going to fail because only phone companies can make something as complicated as a phone.
Yeah, including Balmer.
Right. And because of my prediction, I knew that this is what I had been waiting for. So I said, not only will the iPhone be successful, 2 years from now, the whole industry will be shaken up. Motorola is going to be desperate. Verizon is going to be desperate. All of these companies will be desperate to compete with Apple because they have just flipped the game. Now, what is missing, what they're going to need is something to compete, one up the iPhone with. Well, iPhones are small, the screen is small, it's hard to type. The bandwidth was so slow back then on 3G. If you did 10 clicks, it was almost 10 minutes for the round trip times to happen. What if you could just ask for something and in one round trip achieve a task? Book me a restaurant for 3 people tomorrow night at 8 o'clock at the best Italian restaurant near my house. Boom, in 1 step it's done. That's what the companies who want to compete with Apple will need. Of course, the irony is Apple saw it first or made the move first. But the idea is to have beliefs, and when you see a trigger event like an iPhone along a trend line, you can now predict the future, figure out what's going to be needed in those 2 years from now, and then build that. And that way you hit it spot on, not too early, not too late.
Really, really cool. Adam, thank you so much. This conversation has been very, very informative and very inspirational. Would you like to answer some questions from the audience?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool, awesome. We have a few questions submitted before our chat, and if anyone here would like to ask some questions, please feel free to do that with the Q&A feature. Yes, do you have would you still like to do a magic trick as well?
I can do that. It'll take a little bit of time, so I don't know how much time we have. I'm thinking maybe the best way is you guys can actually go out. If you type into a search engine, Fool Us and Siri, you'll find me performing a magic trick. That I could perform here, but it would probably take 10 minutes. So it's up to you. The other thing is, if you want to see it now?
For sure.
All right, let me see if I can do it. 1 second. Let's see if I can arrange things so you can see. 1 second.
Yeah.
All right, let's give it a try. So earlier on, I was talking about how we went to VCs and raised money for Siri using Active. And we gave everyone, we said, do you have iPhones? Try to solve a task, kind of like the user tests of try solving it using the existing systems, Google and apps. Now try it using Siri, right? So every entrepreneur, it's so important to show why your technology is better than the competition. And for Google, we used to say, Google, you'd put in keywords and get back links in 2007. I said, Siri will be better in 3 ways. Number 1, Siri will answer the question directly, not just give you links. Number 2, I want to be able to refine the question like a conversation, like how about tomorrow? What about the next day? You can't do that with a search engine like Google. And number 3, I wanted to be able to handle multiple tasks at the same time, like dinner and a movie, really complicated to coordinate all the times and information. Search engines just give you 1 task at a time. So we built a version of Siri, and I brought it with me. This is the first paper prototype of Siri. So let me show you how it works. Dwayne, I want you to see, can you see the cards? I want you to see me mix the cards. I don't want you to say, I have them in a certain order. And I want you to be able to see they're all different. We have every single card in the deck mixed. Now, I want you to help me choose a card. You can choose any card. Let's get this piece here. To do that, I'm going to just move my finger over the deck, and you'll say stop wherever you want. We'll get exactly the card you're interested in.
Got it. Stop.
Here? Now, I want to get the exact one. We've got a couple in this area.
Stop.
Here?
No, a bit further. The other side.
Here?
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
That's the one?
Yes.
Great. All right, cool. Well, 2 of them came out. That's fine. We'll do 2. Perfect. So we have shuffle deck. You chose any card. Now, Dwayne, this was the card you chose. You don't even know what it is. I don't even know what it is. So let's ask Siri. You could have chosen any card from the shuffle deck. Now, to do that, there's a little button on the back of every card right here. You just push it like this. Doo-doo. No, I'm just kidding. We didn't put speech recognition in our paper prototype, but we did do what's called natural language understanding. So I can type any question and Siri will answer me. Let me show you. So your card could be a red card or a black card, right? Let me ask Siri. Siri, what color is Dwayne's card? Color. C-O-L-O-R. Color. You just type it, and Siri says, you chose a black card. Maybe. I mean, you chose any card, we shuffle the deck. Now, that's 50-50. I want to know what number you chose. Could be a 6 or a 2 or a king. Siri, what number did Dwayne choose? I have to type it. N-U-M-B-E-R, number. Siri says the card you chose is an ace. Maybe. Black ace. Now, if it's clubs, if it's black, it could be clubs or it could be spades. Is it spades? S-P-A-D-E-S, spades? And Siri says it is indeed a spades. And every card in the deck has exactly one match. So if I ask, what's the match? The M-A-T-C-H. Now, it says that you chose the black ace of spades. So the match would be the other black ace, the black ace of clubs. And that means, Dwayne, the card you chose out of the shuffle deck, you moved me around the exact finger, was the black ace of spades. Now, investors, Google cannot do this, right? Siri is answering every question that I ask, not giving you links. And I can refine a question like, is it black or is it spades? But I also said Siri could handle multiple tasks at the same time, like dinner and a movie. We happen to choose 2 cards out of the shuffle deck. We have a second card here at the same time. Now, this was the color pile. Siri, what color is Dwayne's second card? Color. At the same time. Says you chose a red card.
Okay.
What number is the card that Dwayne chose? Queen, a red queen, maybe. Shuffle deck. You chose any cards. Now, if it's a red card, it could be hearts or it could be diamonds. Is it a diamond? Oh, no. This time you chose a heart. And every card in the deck has exactly one match. So if you chose the red queen of hearts, the match would be the other red queen, the red queen of diamonds.
All right, that's
and that means, Dwayne, the second card you chose was the red queen of hearts. So entrepreneurs, when you're having your big idea, make a prototype. So you don't just tell people, you can show them what you're trying to do. And then you need to be very clear about why your technology is better than the competition. So these were 3 reasons why Google could not do those things. So that's the idea.
Wow. Okay. I'm definitely spooked out. But that's so cool. All
Thank
right.
you.
Let's jump into the Q&A. And you're still good for Q&A, right?
Sure. I'm
Okay.
here whenever you need me, as long as you need me.
Okay, no problem. So we'll do like 15 minutes of Q&A.
All right.
Uh,
I've got the first question actually for someone in your audience.
mhm.
So I ran server side at Apple, and I got to see the log. So my question for your audience, you guys can type it into the chat, is do you know what the #1 most popular query is to Siri? Not the functional queries like send a message or what's the weather, but those chat funny things like
Hmm.
kids used to like to ask. Do you know the #1 functional query? I see someone saying, do you love me? That
Mhm.
is actually, you're very close. Love me is #2.
Wow.
Actually, no, I think love me. I think will you marry me is #2. Tell me a
Mhm.
joke. It's in the top 10. So the first person, Dave Oakley, said, do you love me? Now, let's take the deck, right?
Mhm.
You start a new conversation by cutting the deck somewhere in the middle. Now, Dave, you asked, do you love me? We put in all of the chat stuff into our first prototype. Siri, do you love me? I have to type it. L-O-V-E. See what Siri says? She loves
Oh
me.
my God,
She gives
nah.
me a heart.
That's
Thank
impossible.
you, Dave. That's the #1 most popular question. That was perfect. Sorry.
Wow.
Okay. Over to you.
That's so
Question
cool.
do you think of?
That's so cool. So we have a few questions here from the live audience. So AM asked, we've heard about Adam's wild successes. Are there failures as well that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I'm an optimist, first of all.
Hmm.
So my lesson when people ask me that question is never get too high, never get too low.
Hmm.
So I never say I failed. What I
Hmm.
say is I have not succeeded yet,
Hmm.
right? So I never get down like, oh, I failed, it was terrible. I say, that didn't work out as I thought it would, but I'm going to try something else. So failure is only once you give up. But on the other hand, people go, wow, you must feel so excited about Siri. That must be so satisfying. And for me, I'm like, yes, I'm very proud of what we did with Siri. We had an incredible team. We introduced a whole new paradigm to the world and impacted, billions of users. But it was so far under what I was going for. It was so
Hmm.
frustratingly little of what it was supposed to be. So I also take some of my quote successes. Well, I didn't achieve what I wanted. So you could call it a failure, right? So my lesson is I never say anything's a failure, but I also don't say this is a success, because what drives an entrepreneur more than to be frustrated that he didn't or she didn't achieve everything she wanted to. So when I left Apple feeling frustrated I couldn't take Siri at Apple in the direction I wanted, I took a little time off and then used that frustration, that failure, to start a new company. So, well, I didn't succeed, but it's not a failure. I just haven't succeeded yet. I'm going to try again. Let's start Viv Labs and sell it to Samsung, and maybe that'll be what I wanted. So,
Hmm.
yeah. So everything's a success. Everything's a failure, but don't get too low or too high.
Awesome. So SM asked, your experiments took 4 years before seeing a 10x return that you mentioned with, I think, change.org just a while ago. How did you handle investor relations before finding a successful experiment?
That's a good question. So
Mm.
the first three startups I did, Siri was like an A round, big VC. We raised $8.5 million A round, 10 million pre. It was a very marketable kind of company.
Mm.
Sentient, which was this kind of machine learning for the stock market initially, required a very specialized investor. You can't go to a VC and say, our business model is we're going to make a program that learns how to trade in the stock market, right? They're not going to be comfortable. You have to go to specialized investors who know the stock market, can look at the results, know why it's better and different. And Change.org was basically an altruistic kind of, in the beginning, we didn't have a business model per se, although every organization, nonprofit or not, needs to earn the right to survive. So everyone needs a business model. It's just that profit doesn't go to the investors like a profit, for-profit company. It just gets fed back in. So for Change.org, we were such a ragtag bunch in the early days. I mean, lights were flickering on. We had to beg, borrow, steal, convince, cajole, anything we could get money anyway, because no one is expecting a return. And in fact, Ben Rattray, even to this day, with 400 million members and basically a profitable company, he has made a pledge never to exit. He says, I will never IPO, I will never sell, because I don't want to give up control of the direction. I'm only taking this as an impact company. If you want to move this impact forward, join us. There are ways to get money out for investors, other ways, but secondary markets, et cetera, but I will never exit. And so in the early days, it was, investor relations. It was just a collection of interesting people. Many of them were socially minded. The best investment we made is we started out with a different domain name, and we convinced the owner of the change.org domain name, which was, probably worth, I don't know, $100,000. I mean, that's a premier domain. He not only donated it to us, but he gave us $100,000. So that is a good pitch, right? And, he got a little piece of the company for that, but it wasn't with the expectation that they were going to get big return. It was that we were going to do something important. And I think from that viewpoint, every investor along the way has really gotten their return, because you can go and look at the victories every single day. What we call victories happen on change.org. There are big ones, there are small ones, there are important ones. There have been petitions with 100 Nobel Prize winners who've signed it. People's lives have changed for the better. And that in a sense is the return on investment for change.org.
Wow. So RB asks, Siri has changed so much, even pop culture. What's the funniest Siri meme that you've seen?
The funniest Siri name?
Meme, M-E-M-E.
Oh, meme.
Meme, yeah.
I don't know. The one, the ones where you get these kind of Irish or Scottish people in an elevator, like dealing with Siri or Siri-like things with their accents, are absolutely hilarious to me. I actually have a magic trick that I do. I could probably find it and put a link in the video, where Siri co-founder is interacting with Siri, and Siri doesn't quite get the speech recognition part. So there's like, it kind of goes off in a different tangent direction because it's messing up on the words. And I thought that's kind of a funny concept. So I really like those kinds of, joke videos where they're just getting increasingly frustrated interacting with Siri. So yeah, I'll generally answer that.
Cool. So AG asks, what disruptive piece of technology do you see taking the forefront of society for the next decade?
Yeah, great question. So I believe predictions are super important. I did a batch in 2004. I made 10 predictions for the next 10 years. And then around 2014, I scored those 10 predictions and I made 10 predictions for the next 5 years. So 2015 through 2020. So it's actually time for me to do the research and the diligence to come up with my 5 or 10 next predictions. So I don't have an exact answer for you. I'll give you a few that I've started noodling on. One is around privacy, where I think there could be a backlash against big companies owning all of this data. And, we see it with, if you've seen the social dilemma, how not only do they have so much information about us, Google has every email, every photo, every calendar appointment, there's an enormous amount. Facebook has so much information about us and our interactions. And then they're using it to kind of shape really who we are and our views. I think there may be a backlash, and we may swap from giving, letting big companies keep all of our private data to keeping it more local to us and just parceling it out as needed to big companies. So privacy is one area I'm thinking about. The other is kind of decision making. We've just gone through a pandemic, and there are, big, important problems we need to face in this country and in this world, right? There's not only pandemics, there's climate change, there's poverty, there's hunger, there's so many things that in our lifetime that if we cannot get a handle on thinking better and smarter globally about these problems, we're not going to survive as a species. Doug Engelbart was one of my mentors and really espoused this kind of philosophy. And I think if he looked at our world today, we would say, despite the internet and supercomputers in our pocket and Siris and voice recognition and machine learning, unbelievable scale, we are no better at decision-making and solving big problems than we were when he started his work in the early 60s. And, truth and reason, truth is a tricky word. I've come to believe that there is no thing as truth. There is things as facts, and there are things as facts, and there's perspective. So truth is a lens on your view, but we need to bring together different perspectives, not fragmented, but in a common area to work through problems and find solutions, or we're not going to get it done. We're not, 100 years from now, 50 years from now, we may be facing dire consequences. So I would say collaborative decision-making and global problem solving, harnessing the collective IQ of the world to solve global problems, so important now that it's not a technology, it's a need, but technology can really play a role in solving this need.
Really, really cool. SM asks, what did the acquisition due diligence look like for Siri? What could have blocked it after you said yes?
So we actually had probably the shortest due diligence period in Apple history and probably in most technology acquisition history. From start to finish was 2.5 weeks, which I think is unheard of to go through all the legal process and technical diligence processes. The reason was, as I had kind of referred to, we had a signed contract to ship nationwide on hundreds of millions of competitor devices. And we said, we can't get out of this contract, it's signed. And Steve's response was, I'll make it go away. But there was a deadline that this had to get done by that day, or we were out. I actually have websites captured and videos captured of ads featuring Siri on non-Apple platforms still in my archives. So it's a good thing for entrepreneurs is having a deadline can actually help move things through. There was deep technology due diligence. So we were in there for days on days, and we built new systems in front of them and new domains and answered scalability questions. So a lot of technical stuff, a lot of license. If you haven't gone through a technology acquisition, software licenses are a super big deal. And we were in pretty good shape. Like we had automatic license, we would, as part of our build process, we would generate automatically a list of all software licenses we used, open source or commercial or what have you. But if you're not up on that, and you're trying to move quickly, it's a huge, tricky issue. And even software licenses like LGPL, which I generally consider worthy because you can have commercial use, was a sticking point for Apple. And we got into these lawyerly discussions about, is LGPL okay, or does that software need to be replaced? So that was for me the biggest surprise and the biggest hassle, was to really be, when you're selling your company, the software licenses matter.
Wow.
Be up on it and be very thoughtful, have a policy in place, and get out in front of it early.
Got it. Okay, so we have just a little bit of time for like one more question. So the last question comes from SQ, and the question is, what thing are you most proud of doing?
Um, that's an interesting question. As I said, I never get too high or too low.
Mm,
So I'd say what I'm most proud of, and I think my best attribute, is I follow my passions, right? If
mm,
it's interesting to me, I don't care what anyone else says. Like in 1993, before there existed a web, no one thought a Siri was an important thing to do.
mm,
But I did, and I was interested in it and thought it could be powerful and important. And it's still not there. An assistant is not as important as the web or mobile, and it should be, but I can keep fighting towards it. So I guess what I'm most proud of is I allowed myself the space to follow my passions over the decades, if need be. I'm now 27 years and counting on my Siri thread, still
mm.
not where I want to be. But I follow my way and I stick with it and try and learn and push and move forward. So it's not any of the milestones. It's not launching Siri or launching Viv or even change.org. Um, it's it's the journey. It's caring, it's trying, it's pushing, it's not giving up. It's taking the success and taking the less success and keep moving forward no matter what happens. So I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Really, really awesome. So we've come to the end of our chat. Adam, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the very best in your endeavors. And yeah, you're amazing. You're just amazing. Thank you so much. Um,
Having me.
no problem. You're welcome. And to you, our viewers, thank you for tuning in, and please have a great weekend.